Here's an interesting one for you. Can you earn interest on gold? That's an interesting question because I was told there is no yield on gold. It's a dead asset. And I think I was told that by somebody very famous for investing. And I find it very strange because even that person has invested in gold and so has his company. So let's take a look at this. First of all, what's inflation? Help me understand inflation. Well, there's an easy way to look at this. If you sit on cash, you just hold a US dollar and it just sits in a safe at home or under a mattress or wherever, it's just sitting there. Does it diminish in value or does it grow in value? Well, the idea of inflation is that that US dollar that you're holding is getting less powerful the longer you hold it. Okay, so when you look at a chart of the purchasing power of a US dollar, the reality is it diminishes over time. Okay, that's what inflation is, right? Your purchasing power, how much you can buy with that piece of paper, because we all know those coins are useless now. That piece of paper is less and less and less the longer you hold it. So if we understand that, then what do we do to combat that? Well, then hopefully you've learned that that's why we invest. We invest our money, we buy stocks, we buy mutual funds, ETFs, bonds, treasuries, CDs, money markets, anything we can do to grow that money. Okay, so can you earn a yield? Can you earn interest on a US dollar? Well, the currency itself certainly is not going to pay you, but when you invest it, it grows and it earns, and you can, yes, earn interest on it. Well, that's interesting. When I look at gold, I see the same thing. So some people argue whether gold is a currency or not. And I got news for you. From a global standpoint, gold is a currency. And there's some very, very, very distinct proof that it's becoming more of a currency than it ever has before. So first of all, global financial systems have been using them as reserve assets at central banks. So the entities that create currency use gold as their backup. Well, if you're not convinced that that's a currency, then at that point, well, then how about this? It's obviously a traded commodity. I'll agree that doesn't necessarily make it a currency. Corn is not a currency. I understand that. But go look at international settlement transactions. At an increasing rate, gold is used to settle international transactions. Look at that and tell me that's not currency. Holy cow. And it's happening at an increasing rate on top of that. So now imagine you own a currency that's not the US dollar. And as the US dollar goes down in value, it goes up in value. Isn't that a better currency? Well, I got news for you. Outside the United States, people pay hot potatoes with their currency that they live in. And there's a very distinct reason. The longer they hold that currency, they know the less it's worth. Can you imagine living in a world where inflation is more erratic than we live in here in the United States? Our inflation has been under control. We get a little 8, 9, 10% inflation and everybody panics. How soon we forget, right? So when we see inflation, it makes us not want to sit on those US dollars, hold those US dollars. So you look outside the United States, if they have money in their currency, they find things to buy, whether it's investments or what you'll notice outside the United States is unequivocally gold is way more popular than it is in the United States because again it is the alternative to their currency, so they have something now that grows in value as their currency diminishes in value. So now you have a base currency that's doing the opposite of your currency. That's called a hedge. But again, Very famous quote from a very famous person. It's a dead asset. It doesn't grow. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't pay you yield, doesn't pay you. Well, that's ridiculousness. We have thousands of years of history of this. And guess what? Central banks of the past used to lend out their gold. They used to lease it out. And that sounds crazy because, well, guess what? Us normal consumers didn't know it was really going on, but the central banks were lending and leasing and making money on their gold. They knew things that we didn't know. Oh, how the investing world has changed. So now all of a sudden you can change from your US dollar currency or any other currency for that matter into the international currency of gold. It then goes up in value when your gold or when your US currency goes down in value. And guess what? You can also invest your gold. You can lease it out and you can lend it out. And they're very similar to an average investor leasing and lending, not too much of a difference, but leasing has less risk involved. There's insuring of it, and you retain the owner of it. Kind of like when you're leasing a car, you don't actually have the ownership of it, and you're required to insure it in case you break it, right? So you can lease out your gold. So now, as the prices go up and down in gold, you still own that gold, but they're paying you interest in ounces of gold to utilize it. That's right. Your gold now grows in value because you're earning gold in gold. And the same thing on lending. And in this case, they're going to pay a higher rate of return. Leases, you're seeing anywhere from, say, 3 to 6% interest in gold ounces. And lending, you're seeing anywhere from, say, 6 to 12% interest in gold in ounces. And you are certainly taking on a higher level of risk. But the reality is some people want the option to be able to take a higher rate of risk for a higher rate of return. Some people just stick to the leases with little to no risk. Certainly can't say no risk, but it's all insured. So if something happens, the insurance then helps protect it. So we see this going on out there more and more because the central banks have now released that ability to private companies. And there are two ways to lease and lend out your gold. It's for accredited investors only. So that is a qualifier. You have to have over $1 million investable net worth or an income greater than 300,000. But amongst the wealthy, this is becoming way more popular. It's growing and growing and growing marketplace. So there's private marketplace that matches up the investors of gold with the people that need to borrow it. Think of mining companies. Think of all the enormous, crazy behind the scenes world of entities that utilize gold in their manufacturing process, whether it's jewelry manufacturers, which in your mind might be small, but I'm telling you, go to a jewelry store in Dubai and tell me that's minor. Those stores are funded by gold leasing and lending. They're borrowing the gold so that way they don't owe it in a currency that's fluctuating. They owe it in what they have inventory in. So every electronics out there, this camera I'm speaking to, this computer screen in front of me, all of it has gold in it. So there are endless entities out there that prefer to borrow in that international currency. So they don't have to then borrow in real, US currency or any other denominated currency and then hedge against the price of gold. It's perfect for them. And then there's also a private Reg D fund out there. If you don't know this world and don't want to manage this world, don't want to vet the leasing and lending companies and all of that stuff, there's a private Reg D fund out there as well. So again, the popularity is growing and growing and growing. And this is something that has been around forever. It's just been for the big boys out there only, and now it's really for more normal people than what would be expected. So understand, especially outside the United States, a normal portfolio would always include gold. Whereas inside the United States, we haven't seen huge fluctuations in our currency for quite a long time, since the 70s and first couple of years in the 80s. And I bet you back then gold was a lot more popular, and it was. It absolutely was. So, can you earn interest on gold? The answer is absolutely yes. Is gold a currency? Yes, you can look at it as a currency. It's kind of this hybrid between a currency and an investment, because instead of a paper currency, a fiat currency, as they call it, a baseless currency that goes down in value over time, gold goes up in value over time. So certainly an alternative, and for the vast majority of portfolios, especially multi-million dollar portfolios, in some way, shape, or form, gold is a great diversifier. It is uncorrelated from stocks and bonds. It's very important to add uncorrelated assets to your portfolio, but it also helps to protect your purchasing power. It's kind of that neat little perfect investment that vast majority of portfolios should have a little bit. You might not be worried about today, tomorrow, the next 5 years, but the reality is for some people that are heading into retirement or are retired, you might be looking out 20, 30 years, and you can't tell me that that US currency dollar is going to be worth the same thing 30 years from now. And that's what this helps with. So diversifying your portfolio makes a big, big, big difference. All right, I hope that added a little insight in the world of investing in gold. If I can help in any way, yourinvestmentcounselor.com. You can always jump on there and schedule an appointment with myself or my business partner, Grayson. FPFEAZ.org is our nonprofit organization. We do full education on there, and I got some great little interview video series on there as well. Go to that website, register for classes, watch some of the education on that website. Smash that like button, send it over to your friends, share it, subscribe. We got new videos every single week. Thanks. We'll talk to you soon.